Imagine waking up one morning and your mother is simply gone. No goodbye, no warning, no explanation, just gone. Now imagine spending the next 34 years of your life carrying that weight. Every birthday, every milestone, every quiet Sunday morning that reminds you of something she said, something she laughed at, something she did that no one else in the world could replicate. That was the reality for Tamika Reyes. And somewhere out in the world, the man responsible was walking free, living, breathing, maybe even laughing. For 34 years, he was nobody, just a name nobody knew, until science caught up with him. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and share it with someone who would love it too. Because this story needs to be told. This is the story of Anna Kane. It was 1988. Berks County, Pennsylvania. A small, working-class community nestled between rolling hills and quiet trails. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and kids played outside until the streetlights came on. Anna Jean Kane was 26 years old. She was a mother. She was a daughter. She was a woman who, by all accounts, had fire in her soul. Her daughter Tamika would later describe her in words that paint a picture no photograph ever could. She was a firecracker, Tamika said. Very outgoing. Not afraid of anything. Very honest. Blunt. And caring. Think about that combination for a moment. Honest. Blunt. Caring. That is not a contradiction. That is a woman who loved hard and said what she meant. Anna had children who needed her. She had a little girl who adored her. And she had a life that, despite its difficulties, still belonged entirely to her. Life had not been easy for Anna. She had struggled. She had faced poverty, addiction, circumstances that ground people down slowly over time. She was trying to find her footing. She was trying to turn the corner. She was not defined by her hardest moments, even if the world would later try to define her that way. One of Tamika's most treasured memories is simple, almost painfully simple. She remembers walking with her mother through town, down the streets of Reading, Pennsylvania, passing storefronts and sidewalks. And then, out of nowhere, Anna would just start dancing. Some music would float out of a store, and Anna Kane, mother of 3, would move to the beat right there on the sidewalk, completely uninhibited, completely alive. That is who Anna Kane was. Not a statistic, not a headline. A woman who danced on sidewalks for her daughter. October 23, 1988. The autumn air had settled over Berks County. The leaves had turned. The trail that runs through Perry Township, the Ontolani Trail near Route 662, was quiet. Too quiet. That morning, someone discovered a body along the trail. It was Anna. She was lying in the wooded area, baling twine wrapped around her neck. Her face was severely bruised. The injuries told investigators she had fought back. She had not gone quietly. Anna Kane, true to who she was, had fought. But the fight had not been enough. Investigators quickly determined that she had not been killed where her body was found. She had been strangled somewhere else, then dumped. Someone had carried her out there, left her among the trees, and walked away. Who does something like that and walks away? Detectives got to work immediately. They collected evidence from Anna's clothing. They processed the scene. They found DNA. Male DNA. An unknown male DNA profile, recovered from her clothes, preserved carefully by investigators who understood that one day, technology might be able to do what they could not yet do themselves. They ran the profile. They searched every database available. Nothing. No match. No name. No face. The leads dried up. Weeks became months. Months became a year. The case went cold. Then something strange happened. It was February 1990, 15 months after Anna's murder. The Reading Eagle, the local newspaper that had run a front-page story about Anna's death, asking the public for help, received a letter. The letter was signed by a concerned citizen. The handwriting was calm, almost measured, and the contents were chilling. Because this concerned citizen knew things about Anna Kane's murder that had never been made public. Details so specific, so intimate, so precise, that they could only have come from one place. The killer had written a letter. He had sealed the envelope himself, running his tongue along the adhesive flap, licking it closed. And in doing so, he had left behind something he could not have known would one day destroy him. His DNA. Detectives tested the envelope. The DNA on that saliva-sealed flap matched the male DNA profile already recovered from Anna's clothing. The same person who had killed Anna Kane had then written a letter to a newspaper about it. He had watched them search. He had watched the story run. And something inside him had compelled him to reach out. Maybe it was arrogance. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something darker that forensic psychologists could spend years debating. Whatever the reason, he wrote the letter. He licked the envelope. And somewhere, in that single quiet gesture, he made his first and only mistake. But detectives still had no name. They had DNA. They had handwriting. They had a ghost. And for the next 3 decades, that ghost stayed invisible. 3 decades. Think about what happened in 34 years. Children were born. People got married. Technology transformed the entire world. Wars were fought. A global pandemic swept every continent. And Anna Kane's case stayed open. Tamika Reyes grew up. She became a woman, a mother herself. Every year that passed was another year of wondering. Another year of questions with no answers. Another year of watching her brothers, who had been too young to remember their mother, build their lives with a hole in the middle of them. It has been hard growing up without a mom, Tamika would say years later. No child should ever have to grow up without their mom. Her grandmother carried the same grief. She prayed for answers. She waited for justice. She held on to hope for as long as she could. She died waiting. That pain is something no court ruling, no press conference, no breakthrough technology can ever fully repair. Anna's mother never got to know the name of the man who took her daughter. That is an injustice that sits quietly beneath every headline about this case. The investigators did not give up. Year after year, cold case detectives revisited the file. They preserved the evidence. They ran new checks as databases expanded. They kept Anna's name alive inside the system. Pennsylvania State Police Sergeant Nathan Trate would later speak about the original detectives with deep respect. All of that stuff was preserved the way it should be, he said, because they knew probably somewhere down the line, whatever they collected could be that little piece of evidence to solve the case. He paused. Well, here we are in 2022. 2022. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted back in 1988. One of those changes was a quiet revolution happening inside forensic science laboratories. Genetic genealogy. The concept is elegant in its simplicity. Human beings share DNA with their relatives. If a crime scene produces a DNA profile, and that profile cannot directly match anyone in criminal databases, scientists can search genealogical DNA databases instead, the kind where ordinary people spit into a tube to learn about their ancestry. By finding relatives of the unknown DNA, forensic scientists can begin building a family tree and work their way down through generations until they arrive at someone who fits the timeline, the location, and the profile. Pennsylvania State Police sent the DNA profile from Anna's clothing and the envelope to Parabon NanoLabs, a Virginia-based company that has helped law enforcement crack dozens of cold cases using exactly this method. The scientists went to work. They searched. They mapped. They connected dots across bloodlines that stretched back generations. And then they had a name. Scott Grimm. A local man. A Hamburg, Pennsylvania area native. A man who, at the time of Anna Kane's murder in 1988, had been 26 years old. The same age as Anna herself. Investigators obtained a direct DNA sample from Scott Grimm, obtained legally through a search warrant. They ran it through their own state crime laboratory. It matched. The DNA on the envelope matched Scott Grimm. The DNA on Anna Kane's clothing matched Scott Grimm. 2 samples. 2 sources. 34 years apart. 1 man. The case was solved. But justice, in the traditional sense, was already beyond reach. Scott Grimm had died in 2018 of natural causes. He was 58 years old. He had lived an entire life after killing Anna Kane. He had grown older while Tamika grew up without a mother. He had breathed free air for 30 years after licking that envelope and mailing it to the newspaper. He never faced a courtroom. He never sat across from a jury. He never looked Anna's children in the eyes and answered for what he did. The case was officially closed by what investigators call a clearance by exception, which means the offender has been positively identified but cannot be prosecuted. When Tamika received the call from detectives, she was at work. The detective reached out through social media and asked her to call back. She did. "I didn't think I'd see this day," she said quietly, "but I had hope. My emotions are all over the place. Happy, sad, angry. Happy that her mother's name was no longer attached to an unsolved case. Sad because the man responsible would never stand trial. Angry because Tamika had questions she would never get to ask. She had always imagined what she might say to him if she ever had the chance. She had carried those questions for 34 years. Why, she said. Was it worth it? Are you sorry? The silence that answers those questions is deafening. There is one more thing Tamika wanted the world to know. When the story first broke in 1988, the media described Anna in a way that reduced her entire life to her worst and most vulnerable moments. They called her a slain prostitute. They implied, through the language they chose, that somehow the circumstances of her life made what happened to her more acceptable, more expected, less tragic. Tamika pushed back on that. Hard. She was portrayed as this slain prostitute, like she deserved what happened to her, she said. It was hurtful. She was more than that. She was a victim. She was a mother. She was loved. No one deserves what happened to her. No one. That is the message this story carries beyond the DNA and the databases and the cold case files. Every victim deserves dignity. Every victim deserves to be seen as a full human being with a history, with love, with people who grieve them. Not as a type, not as a category, as a person. Anna Kane danced on sidewalks for her little girl. She was a firecracker. She was not afraid of anything. And 34 years later, the science that finally said her name, said it clearly. She mattered. She always mattered. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think about cases like Anna's, and what justice really means when the killer is already gone. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply refuse to forget. Rest in peace, Anna Kane.